Support for the Red Dirt D&D podcast comes from Home Creations, Oklahoma City-based home builders with over 40 years of experience building new homes in the Oklahoma City metro. More, including financing options, virtual tours, and locations at homecreations.com.
Welcome to the round table for Red Dirt D&D Curse of the Clockwork City. I'm Brooke Bullock, joined by...
Michael Cross.
I'm Johnny Payne, and I remain your humble grognard.
Carrie Hester.
Connor Shenold.
Woohoo! Happy springtime, everybody! Kind of, sort of. Yay!
Back from Christmas break.
In the spring.
We are back from Christmas break.
For us,
We're in spring.
For us, it's the first cold day we've had in like 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Followed, because we live in Oklahoma, just a couple days after tornado.
I was walking
in the winter.
I was walking around between Christmas and New Year's literally singing, "It's beginning to look a lot like Easter."
Rare January tornadoes and yes.
That's right. We don't know what this, it's just a season of, I don't know, I was going to say something Christmassy or Thanksgiving-y, and we just have to wait 100 and 300 and some days now for those things again. But anyway, in our hearts, woo, it's always time to play.
Yep.
Sure. Yes.
Let's D&D.
Let's do some D&D. Woohoo! Is it too early for Stranger Things spoilers? Probably.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For us.
It's been 2 months.
I know it's been 2 months. Get with the program,
Yeah,
people.
edit this out, Michael. People probably don't know that Vecna killed half of them.
I know.
Yeah.
I know.
Just went on a rampage all of the time.
whole-
Hawkins is just devastated.
And
The
wasn't
whole
it
time.
crazy that they totally spoofed everybody and dropped the last episode?
Conformity
like,
Gate
few
was
days
amazing.
after?
Conformity
Episode
Game was
9.
amazing.
Yeah.
And then that
You guys
guy
will see it in
woke
a few
up and it was
months.
all a dream.
I was very
It was
impressed.
Neo playing a game on the Xbox.
I was kind of disappointed. There were people who were like, wouldn't it have been neat if it just all turned out to be a game
Yes,
from
yes.
back when they first started it?
Yes.
And I was kind of disappointed. That actually would have been a very cool if they.
They would have had to have that in mind way back when they shot season 1, though.
Well, that's why that's
Yeah.
why that would have been so cool.
Yeah.
If the last scene was them back at 11 years old, and like they had shot that, they had shot that ending.
That would have been nuts.
But instead,
Exactly.
he wrote it as a module. For the future. Yeah,
Yes.
no, that's
Yeah.
what I took away from it.
Yeah. Yep. In some old school gaming things, have you guys ever done a campaign or a one-shot or a small series in which you are playing some heroic version of yourself? Like you've statted yourself
so
out
I
and give
played
yourself...
a game of Mage from White Wolf back
Yeah.
in the
Right.
late 90s, and the guy who ran it was like, you are Brooke, you are Michael, you are Johnny. You wake up in the morning, you go into the bathroom, you look in the mirror, and it's brighter than it should. And this turns it into, I, Johnny, become the character that I made.
Yeah.
And then to protect the ones I love, I changed my name to the name I picked for my character. But he didn't tell us that that's what he was going to do. That's just how he started off the first session was, he goes, here's your backstory. You were you, and suddenly you look up a power. And it was really neat. It was really cool. It was run in Oklahoma City. The game was the setting.
Nice.
And
Yep.
it was pretty cool. So I've kind of done,
Yeah, we played GURPS in the late 80s. I had a GM who, it was not the
Generic.
late 80s, mid 80s, generic universal role-playing system. And the whole idea is that you could play anything, anywhere, anytime. That's why Steve Jackson created GURPS. And we did. We created our own characters, and he did a kind of like a time travel type of thing to where we just played ourselves traveling back and forth in time. And so that was kind of cool.
Yeah, those are always fun. So that may be in like an old school thing. I don't know if like new players ever do any things like
No,
that.
I'm lame. Why would I be me?
Yeah.
When I could be a wizard.
there's a modern
Picking
series.
human in D&D.
It's like picking human fighter.
There's a modern series of games. I cannot remember what they're called. They each have a similar name, but one is like the world ends because the gods wake up, and the world ends because aliens. The world ends because zombies, and one of the books that suggests the way that you tell the story is you guys are sitting around a table as friends about to play a game, and then this happens.
Right.
Half the world is zombies. Aliens show up. So your character is equipped with whatever's in that house that you're in. And you are you, and your character has the family that you have. And so if your kid's at home with a babysitter, that's plot number one. someone needs to help me and my wife get back to the house and see if the kids are okay. And it was
cute.
But they're short. They're not made for like giant campaigns. They're kind of short-lived stuff. But it's pretty neat concept. Yeah.
We should do a one shot of that and mix it with the players don't know their character sheet. So you have to find out like what your actual strength score is.
When you make your character,
activity.
you have to keep honest, and it's like you know the strongest person in the room is Brooke. So I can't write down that I have 20 strength, because Brooke should have the 20.
And there are some old fun stuff. I'm pretty sure you can now find it just on the internet. Back then it was a lot harder. Of course, back then it was harder to know things. So,
also true.
I was an idiot in the 90s.
If you guys don't realize it, before Google, it was a lot harder to know things. You had to like go to libraries and read magazines. It was horrible.
If it wasn't in your home encyclopedia, thing, then oh man,
that's right. Your big stack of encyclopedias. So there was a thing. It was like, how much can you bench press? Divide that by 10, and that's your strength.
Yeah.
How many days have you missed
remember hearing
work?
those.
Divide that by a certain amount, and that's your charisma. By the way, how many days have I ever missed work?
Probably none.
0.
Yeah.
Why? Because if I miss a day of work, everybody in the state of Oklahoma knows that.
So you're the one with either constitution or willpower of 18, one of the two, right? You're either super healthy or you just make yourself get there.
So I have a con of 20. That's nice. Kimberly got sick over the Christmas holiday, and it was infectious. And I'm like, I didn't get it. Didn't even affect me at all, and hopefully by now she's done coughing. She isn't right now. Hopefully by March everything is fine.
Quick little podcast edit question. I think it might be episode 47-ish with Sweep Up, and then the poison gas that comes out of the desk drawer. Kiri had been sick during those sessions and was coughing. It sure sounds like you just took her actual cough and like used that as the sound effect I mean, it really did. I was like,
I didn't even think about that. No, it's just I do have a female coughing.
Okay.
And a lot of my
good news, I just cough generically.
a lot of my female
or like an actor.
Yeah. Well, a lot of my female sound the firebolt. I don't know if you've noticed that your fire bolts.
It does kind of sound like me.
It does.
Well, I heard it and I was like, that sounds like Kira. So yeah, you now have an incantation you say before you do your firebolt. So a lot of our female voices. Yeah.
Good news, I'm perfectly average.
No, you sound like a voice actor.
That's it. I'm going to go with that.
These are voice actors that are doing things.
What Michael should do is just sit us all around a table and like list off the various noises we need to make so he can make it.
Welcome to the Onomatopoeia Podcast.
That's my favorite. My favorite thing that like when actors are doing voice acting for the first time, and that's they learn how exhausting that part is. Just doing like the voiceover, like Jackie Chan talked about it when he did Jackie Chan Adventures, and he had to go in and make all of his fighting sound effects.
Yeah.
Oh,
he was
my
like,
goodness.
it was really awkward and weird, and I didn't like it.
Well, most people don't realize that when you're doing something like this, you're on. Mm-hmm. And being on is the same thing as when I'm doing the morning show. It's when you're on mic, it's very taxing. It's not just, I'm just reading stuff. There's more to it, and a lot of people don't realize that.
Yeah. It's the mental equivalent of like trying to keep your balance on like one of those, floaty ball things or whatever. Like there's a ton of little like micro use of your muscles physicality wise when you're doing something like that. And I think mentally there's like all of these micro super fast decisions that you're making as you're there live, right?
Yeah.
On the air and stuff.
Yeah, and that's why you can, if you're paying attention to our shows, and you can tell when we've gotten to episode 4, we're getting to that point where it's like, oh my gosh, we're worn. Now, of course, if you're a patron, you get to hear that in the outtakes, because that is our patrons get to hear our outtakes, and you can hear our outtakes are at that point. We're like, okay, are we done yet? Did it die? Am I dead?
Can I die?
Can I make a new character? I'd really like to make a new character now.
That's why after we record, when I get home, I take the longest nap ever.
It's true, right? Like you get home, and those of us with all
Mental
of us,
exhaustion is real.
The
It's not a
spouses,
bad
the
thing.
things.
You don't take a nap?
Since we've changed recording to Saturdays, I have my Saturday night group. I generally, like today, we started a little bit later. I won't have time to go home at all. I'm going to go straight from here to Edmond. And I will get like an hour and a half of watching TikToks in my car before I show up. But that's I go from D&D, and then we're playing Savage Worlds, and there's a lot going on over there. Stuff is kicking off.
Yeah.
But so yeah, obviously this already happened for them, but I'm sorry to my game group anytime I have to, because my brain is only like 60% there.
Yeah. Of course, we play on Friday nights. My poor wife comes home from school. And
from
play,
being
and
on,
she's
again,
like,
being on,
yeah,
right?
being a teacher. Oh my gosh, I did that once. I substitute teach once, never again.
Especially as a sub.
The what you teachers do is phenomenal. I can't do it. I can't imagine it. But she comes home, and that's why she always plays a rogue. She'll play different races, whatever, Tabaxi but she always plays a rogue, and no one has any problem with it. Except I do, because I like Rogue too, and I'd someday like to play Rogues. Play a different one. But no, we always let her play the Rogue, because that way she doesn't. It's mindless. She's playing the swashbuckling Rogue. Because she doesn't want to have to think, and I understand that. Yeah. After a day of teaching.
There you go.
When we did the playtest for the competitive, one way to hook Kimberly into joining us, I was like, you can have the rogue character.
Yes, you did. And that was 6 hours.
Yeah.
Boy, we got to the end of that. That's why I had to put that out for our patrons. If you're a patron, you can actually hear the 6 hours of us play testing, which I thought was hilarious.
Broken up into 6 episodes,
Six
I think,
episodes,
right?
with music and sound effects.
Yeah.
So we had a lot of fun with it, and amazing job for you and for Aiden on writing that for Extra Life. It's just amazing. So
There you go. Speaking of patrons, a quick little shout out to a couple of new folks who joined us first
3
of
months
the
ago.
year.
That's true.
Well, one of those things, right? So Mr. Snowyak has joined in. That's great. And we mentioned, I think back in December, that we had another Timothy B, but he's upgraded to a Copper Dragon. So, shout out to those guys.
Yeah,
and folks.
Yeah, and by the way, I was listening to Wayfinder Legends, and I got to mention there was a neat little shout out at the beginning of this past Monday. We
way
talked
back.
about your trip to a magical place.
I did. Supposedly the most magical place on earth.
I want to know a little bit more about this.
The-
if you can talk about it. I don't know if you can, but
yeah. The trip itself, or just the interaction?
Just the interaction.
Yeah.
So if you want to talk about the trip, that's fine too. I'm like, no, don't talk about the.
If you could talk about it, it's like, no, I told work I was having surgery because I didn't have any vacation days left.
I was thinking,
so I can't talk about this.
No, Brooke signed that NDA.
That's right. So anyway, a quick side note off of what Johnny just said. So gone to Disney World, and in a previous trip, one of my daughters lost her phone. It just fell at the back of her pocket, right? And so we call it, and it just goes straight to voicemail, and we're like, oh crap, like blah blah blah. Long story short, someone had found it, very nice, turned it in. We go to the thing, we get it, and I said, hey, how come you guys like turned it off? How come you just didn't like answer it? And it took a moment to kind of get this answer, but the lady basically said, well, sometimes people are not supposed to be at Disney World, and so if we answer it in hopes to get them back their phone, we've caused problems for people before. And I'm like, oh, that's interesting. So
Disney World is the no-tell motel.
If you're telling people you're doing something and you actually go to, for people who are in Florida.
Yeah.
I'm doing some mission work, boss. I'll be gone for a week.
In Orlando for some reason. Anyway.
Yes. But while we were there, so I was wearing one of our shirts, one of our Red Dirt shirts, walking around, and this young man came over and went, "Are you on a podcast?" And I'm like, yes, you know, and yada yada, and there was that little conversation, and I gave him a card, you know, and blah blah blah. Well, you know, it's a closed space, and you rotate around, and although there are thousands of people there, right? It was very close to the end of the day, and he saw me again and came over, and he went, "That's really fun podcast." He had listened already, right?
Oh, wow.
So while he was waiting in line or whatever like that. And he's like, shout out to my friend, and told me a little story, which I'll keep that part of the story kind of tight. But told me a little story, and I said, sure. And then I'm counting in my head, okay, episode 80 of Wayfinder Legends. Like, give it a listen, and we'll be there.
Yeah.
So anyway, that was just a neat little thing.
It was just really cool. It was a neat little, and I hope all of us do. I do it when I was at my gym. The guy was like saw me in a red dirt or D&D shirt. I told him I do a Red Dirt podcast, and every now and then you just run into people who are like into it.
Yeah,
and,
100%.
By the way, I have a podcast if you want to listen to it. Like,
I found a little card shop over by my house a couple days ago, and just wandered into it and was telling. I had my Run D&D shirt on, and I was telling everybody in there about it. And there was one person like, "Yeah, I think I listened to y'all before." Like, Cowboys. It's like, yeah, jump in again because now we're not Cowboys anymore.
Now we're steampunk.
Yeah, exactly. Jump in December 4th of 2023 is when
Yes.
this one starts, right? Yeah.
24.
24. Yeah. So there you go.
You realize this June we will have been around for 6 years.
It's amazing. Woo!
That is phenomenal.
It's absolutely amazing.
Kiri didn't think it would last.
I never said that.
But what's even better, because it's March as we listen to this. What's even better is it's so close for us to be able to talk about what's coming next.
Oh yeah,
I can't wait to hear.
So excited about
Token
what's
Con?
coming up. Well,
Yeah.
that too, right? I wonder if we get to announce anything at Token Con. I don't know.
It'll be March.
So it'll be
It's
March.
coming in March.
It'll be
Token
March.
Con is 4 days.
Woo!
Yeah.
Oh wow.
4 days
Super
long.
exciting.
It's at the Reed Center. If you're watching this listening to this in early March, I think it's only like a couple of weeks away. So
Yeah.
sign up now. Token Con, 4 days of playing games.
It's so much fun.
That is,
It's just the
and,
best.
And remember when Token Con was this little tiny
Little tiny-
Oh
convention?
yeah,
that-
definitely. They did it right.
Well, they did,
They grew,
and that's
yeah.
why I tell people is whenever these fly-by-night huge cons come in, they're like, "Why
ones
can't
that-
we get anybody here?" It's like, well, because you need to grow it from the ground up in Oklahoma.
Yeah,
Things
yeah.
grow here in Oklahoma.
Yeah.
You don't just come and implant things.
100%. It's like the first time the booth is there, right? People are just going to walk by you, right?
Yes.
They're just going to walk by, and then they see you at the next con, and they linger as they look, and then they walk by you. And then at the next con, they actually come over and they say, "Hey, what are you guys? What are you doing?" You know,
And
that
we've,
type of thing.
We've been
So,
thrilled to be part of Token Con and Sooner Con and Miracle Con.
You
and
bet.
Just because it's wonderful to be a part of these little smaller organizations.
Yeah. And if you can't make it to a con, but still want a chance to be able to chat with us and say hi, here in March, we've got another patron hangout coming up, March 15th. So I haven't checked the dates or times or anything on that, but that's coming up, and you can jump in on the Discord and see us there. Yeah. So for a little kind of come and go chit chat that we do every odd month for patrons. So
It's on a Sunday.
it's on a Sunday.
goodness. That
Sunday.
makes it so much easier.
Oh, that's gonna be awesome.
Yeah. So
and
it'll be
for
this.
many of us, it'll be the Sunday right before spring break.
Whee! You can
So
stay up
maybe-
late.
Or maybe we could do it actually a little bit earlier.
I don't know. Oh, earlier in the in the
Sunday.
afternoon.
Yeah, so that way
Like
I can
an
sleep because I have to be
afternoon.
up at 1:30 in the morning.
That's true. So Michael Cross always doing the sacrifice
Come
to
March,
be able
I
to
will
hang
still
out.
be getting up at 1:30 in the morning. I know that for a fact. All right, so let's talk about the show.
Hey, woo!
Which my wife says sometimes we talk too much during these
Well, it's the round
these round tables and we don't talk about the show. Well,
You don't have to listen to the round table.
that's true.
We hope you
But
do.
we're glad you do.
but
Yes.
we're glad that you do.
You can listen to it like I do and fast forward through the boring part.
So
Whichever parts you find boring.
Fast forward through all my parts. Oh, here's Johnny.
Johnny's talking. Johnny's talking. 2X.
Grognard thing.
Great Johnny
Grognard
sounds
thing.
like a chipmunk. So episodes 47 through 50.
Woohoo!
Where are we? Oh, that's right. We're still in a dungeon.
That's
Still
right.
in
In the
this
dungeon crawl.
Okay.
But you guys are
crawls are
killing
great.
it. No pun intended.
We have one end of the table that favors the story, and the other end of the table favors the dungeon crawl. We're a good mix here.
I love the dungeon crawl. But
Variety.
I got to say, first off, the size of this. Does anybody actually know this is below the city?
Right. I
Some
mean, we
people-
do,
Mega
but I don't
dungeon.
know.
The cult did.
The
know.
cultists found it, and there's something there, where they carved out from the. First, we've got things that are hidden in the walls, right? And then that leads to this hidden guild that apparently even the Sapphire Society didn't know about. This little
It
guild.
definitely feels
headquarters.
like the recipe for concrete, right? So we
Oh,
went through
yeah.
the Dark Ages, the when the magic was turned off, and it feels like we lost a lot of knowledge of stuff that happened before that.
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
I was
like-
trying to think of the story recipe for concrete, and then my brain caught up.
I don't know
Roman
that at all.
concrete, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Roman
So
concrete. Oh my
we
gosh.
lost the recipe for concrete during the Dark Ages, and they studied the Pantheon in Greece to try to figure out how to make concrete again. We lost the recipe for it as a human race, and we figured it out. It's not the exact same, but it works.
I think they're
And to
getting
keep-
closer.
They're
to
getting pretty close to
figure
getting
out
the
what
exact
the
one.
original
And
was.
nerds, Roman concrete. Were you gonna say it, Johnny?
No, I was going to
Okay.
say to keep from losing it again, instead of writing it on parchment, they etched it into concrete.
But
Nice.
Roman concrete,
Well-
like the Parthenon, Roman concrete will heal itself.
It'll heal itself from the
It,
limestone.
the limestone melt gets
So
when there's
we
a hole.
still
it
don't
gets-
have the technology that
and
they
we don't
had
know
back
how to,
then.
we don't know how to
We're
do
getting
that yet.
really close.
We have asphalt.
Yeah.
We're getting really close. But there's a bunch of things that people assumed were such common knowledge that they never wrote them down, right? There's the story of the civilization that frequently traded with Egypt, but nobody wrote down where it was, so we have no idea.
I
because
just want the Greek
everybody
fire
just
recipe
knew.
found.
Well, I was talking to a group of guys about that. The fact they go, oh, that should just be common sense. And I'm like, okay, here's the thing. I'm sick of that term. I am sick of that, and here's why. Because of that. People go, oh, they should just know it. And I'm like, okay, but no one does.
But no one does.
Okay, the common sense for a human is to lie around naked and do nothing.
Well,
but I have to eat. I have to clothe my. It's really weird.
Tell me more about your fantasy lifestyle.
The concept of common sense, your concept of common sense really changes when you become a parent. Not that I'm a parent, but I have parented. And you
Okay.
realize that you have to teach them everything.
Everything.
You do, but we. That's because we were actually taught. Because that's the problem. Is anyone who goes, oh, that should just be common sense. They don't realize they were taught it, learned it, and use it in practice. They forget and they go, oh, well, I should just, I don't have to teach you that.
Michael.
And that's where I think the idea behind the conversation.
I mean,
we don't have to teach you
You
that
have to teach,
because you
have-
should just know it.
You have to teach a child to look both ways before crossing the
Yes,
street.
you do.
As a Gen Xer, who was basically abandoned, sometimes, you know the whole thing where it's like, Gen Xers as kids, their parents didn't know where they were. I didn't know where my parents were. I mean, a lot of stuff was trial and error, figuring it out. I think there was an episode of Family Ties that did this. Let me go back and watch that and see if I can figure out how. Yeah, once you can reach the microwave, you are on your own.
Yeah,
I'm not teaching you anything. Figure it out.
I was a latchkey Gen Xer as well. I was a latchkey kid, and you have to teach yourself. And when you go play football with the kids down the block, you would just come back when it got dark.
To me, here's common sense. I'm going to get the frozen meal out of the fridge and walk out of the freezer and walk over to the microwave, and then I'm going to walk up to my parent and go, "How long do I cook this?" Or I'm going to take it out of the freezer, walk over to the microwave, and read the text on the box that says "Cook for 30 seconds."
Yeah.
Common sense. To me, that's common sense. The box is trying to tell you what to do.
So
You're gonna go
to
ask
me,
your
I would
parents.
categorize that as resourcefulness.
Yes, you don't, because again, you have to read.
I don't know.
Which means you have to have learned how to read.
Well-
so again, as humans, we are supposed to just lay around and do nothing.
Were you talking about the game?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, concrete.
Yeah, Connor.
Concrete.
So that's what I'm saying is I feel like
Underneath
the
the
knowledge
city.
of all of this, because this is all we established is all pre-magic outage, that it was kind of forgotten. So there's something like it only takes one generation to completely eliminate something.
Yeah, yeah.
You know
Or
who
maybe that
knows-
was from Fourth Wing. But depending on what it is,
Still valid.
If the people in power wanted the population to not know about this. They just have to destroy a handful of records, wait for a generation to die, and move on.
Yeah.
Or not wait for a generation to die.
Or that's I'm not certain if it was that somebody wanted someone to not know it. You just forgot about it.
That's what I'm saying. It's one of those two things.
Well, yeah, because it's like after you no longer needed this
Right.
steam-powered
Right.
facility because the magic kicked back on, then it's just abandoned, whatever.
And
There's no need to know about it.
Yeah,
Michael brings up a good point when he says, "Who knows about this?" Based on everything I've heard about this, etc. Here's an interesting theory I just birthed. The dwarves know about this, of course. Also, every dwarf we've seen in this campaign has somehow been a villain. They ain't talking. They ain't telling you there's a big underground labyrinth in the city. They're using it.
I don't know how big the dwarfs are in this city as far as the upper part. But does the king know? Does the king's chancellor know?
I can tell
does
you
the city council
pretty
know?
confidently that every time Brooke has described anything about this king, he seems completely incompetent.
He's a figurehead.
Well, there is a city council, so yeah, he is more of a constitutional monarch rather than an actual monarch.
For sure.
I didn't vote for him.
I will say there are.
Zaylen Pierce knows about it.
There are
And
people,
Zaylen,
and
yes.
that's the thing. I was just saying, wait for a generation to die. There are people who are living who were there, like Rhapsody.
Yes.
Rhapsody has been here since the magic outage. Yeah. She wasn't here pre-magic outage, I don't think. We ran the math on that once, but
it is a lot harder in a world where people can live to 600-700 years.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
When people have a lifespan to realize, I remember that. When was that? Oh, that was about 300 years ago.
Yeah.
but
If people were alive during the signing of the Declaration of Independence, that would change how our history works.
Oh yeah.
But also, even if Rhapsody was alive, maybe like thermal engineering wasn't necessarily her interest, and so she doesn't know.
Right.
Yeah.
that's the other thing is that you
Ignorant.
can bread and circus this and pull the attention away from this, that, or the other thing, which I think is.
But someone who
Back
might know
to
this is like
my-
Zaylen Pierce, who's
Back
been
to
a
my, and I've been saying this since we met him. Zaylen Pierce is a bad, bad man, and he's doing this all on purpose.
He is the king.
I don't think he is the king, but he wants
to be king.
And so he's hiding behind the charity for the children while he uses them as animal testing, essentially, for his cyborg army, so that he can mount a coup.
Yeah. Say no to vivisection, kids. So I love, and we have actually found out that it is Zaylen Pierce, right?
Right.
At
Now,
least circumstantial evidence, right?
well,
Tall guy, long hair, pointy ears.
It's the dwarf that works for him.
And it is the dwarf.
Edward.
They're both Edward and Zaylen Pierce are both behind this, and
Yep. Which Edward Gut King, there was a conversation, you guys were right on.
and another long-lived race, by the way.
Yeah, dwarf, right? Dwarf, but not Drugar. So, or at least appears, right?
Yeah.
Appears not to be Drugar
Right.
anyway. So, and there's that mix. So down here we've seen Drugar, and then, but Edward Gut King appears to be dwarf, right? So,
But we also know that the Drugar that we've been seeing are also connected to the same clans that are trying to gain land and resources and leverage outside of the city.
Right.
And so if Zaylen Pierce kind of led them to believe, hey, you can use the city's resources if you help me take the city from the king. I also will. If I were king, I would pull back, and we wouldn't support any. You would be chill to take over things outside. All of those kinds of things. So I think that there's some machinations that obviously we don't know the full extent of, and I still am not 100% on the science. Fantasy science is already weird.
right.
Always.
But this like using people, like getting them addicted to Shiver in order to mine the Shiver effects and the way that it affects the magical plane, and using that to power machines to open doors.
And then
it's all a little
sticking souls into machines.
Right. Those parts, the sciencey parts, are hazy for me.
And weirdly like, kid souls into machines.
Although so for my thought is the fact that it's more people just experimenting with different things, not necessarily.
Oh, it's like a Jurassic Park situation.
It's more like a Frankenstein type of thing.
They were so concerned whether they could, they didn't think about whether they should.
Sort of, but even more so, it's just, hey, let's see what happens if I do this.
Let's
see what happens if I do this.
What can it do?
It's not necessarily that I've got an overarching. It's like, hey, what if I X? What if I? It's the early days of science for us. And
also,
like,
sure, I think to some extent there's that. I think Zaylen Pierce also sees the potential in that.
Yes.
And he's I'm going to keep funding their research in case they come up with something good.
And
Azrak used souls to power his machine.
Yeah.
The animated Critical Role, Mighty Nine.
I'm only on episode 3.
I haven't watched one episode yet. I still want to watch, but I haven't.
They're collecting soul. Not they, but I mean,
So the party's turned evil, and they're collecting. We'll talk more about it later. Anyway,
but that's what
But again, there's only 7 stories, right, so to speak. And so you're going to have these overlaps of things and the ways they connect. Anyway, it's awesome.
So there are a lot of things that we don't know yet, including who knows about this whole gosh dang underground bunker, multi-buildinged bunker. 2 buildings away, a post office away from being a small village.
That was the first thing I thought was like, this thing is, again, this is huge. This is not just
and also remembering that we're on an island.
We're on
a peninsula.
We're on a peninsula. We're not actually on an island. This is just an outshoot of the
There's a lot of water.
Yes, but we are an offshoot of the mainland. We're not on an actual.
We're Florida.
For surrounded by water. We're on a peninsula.
Yeah.
So it's not actually an island.
I thought we had rivers on both sides.
You have a river that goes by, just the one.
Maybe I'm thinking of a different map.
You may be thinking of a different map. Which
does
is totally
it matter?
How many games are you playing?
Only 2. But they're very similar. But still, that's still at least 75% of our land mass is touching water.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
So we're underground. We're underwater.
Oh yeah, yes. Oh well, yeah. We are very
through that wall. Because, no one.
Yeah, because the entire town itself would have to be at sea level because the sea is right there.
Nobody shoot a gun in here.
Or cast pass wall.
But of course, again, it's a fantasy world, so who knows?
Also true.
But we went from one massive area to another. And so we're talking about several football fields, high and wide and long, and it'd be like going under Oklahoma City and finding another place as big as Oklahoma City that was, hundreds of yards high.
Yeah.
And it's like that. I know there are tunnels under Oklahoma City, but not this.
Not caverns.
Yeah.
There you go. Which I always thought was this idea of dwarven underground caverns and stuff, and you see things like from Lord of the Rings, Khazad-dûm?
Yeah, Khazad-dûm.
Yeah, Khazad-dûm. And sometimes I get that confused with Babylon 5 and Zahad-dûm, and then it gets really tricky.
But no one watches Babylon 5.
Anyway,
shut
your mouth. Anyway, pause for edit while I change Michael's attitude. And we're back. Okay, so... Just teasing. But you see things like that and you think, man, okay, that's great, that's fantasy, and it's never going to happen. And, it can't really happen, quote unquote. And then you see pictures of those salt mines that are in Europe. Have you guys ever seen those?
I don't think so.
Oh my gosh. So when you're finished listening, Google salt mine Europe. I think it's in Europe. And it looks like Khazad-dûm. It is an underground facility that is... tens and tens of meters tall and tens of meters wide, and they've just carved the salt out of the rock, and it is it's crazy.
Yeah.
And that makes me go, I guess we can have underground civilizations that really
If humans
exist.
can do it without magic, surely dwarves who could live for centuries could do it with magic.
And not tell anybody about it.
And it's,
Not
well,
telling
Except the
I
bad
think, no, I
guys.
think, again, I don't, not,
Coming back to
because
that.
you had machinery down there, so you had machines down there. So I think at one point, they didn't just not tell anybody. They did. There was actually, I'm pretty sure.
Oh, for sure. I mean, this was used
this was a
to power
common
the
knowledge
city.
thing. Everybody knew at the time that this existed. But again, and you could say 1 generation, 2 generations, maybe people will forget it. But again, we're living in a world where people live for 500-600 years. So you've got people
But
like Zalen Pearson and Edward Gutking, who were alive when this was going on.
Well, and then, I mean, you have, like we were mentioning, there's people like Rhapsody who would be like, oh yeah, no, the city was powered by steam for a while. It's pretty cool. And then when magic came back on, and that's all she's ever really thought about it.
You wouldn't think about
Versus Zalen Pierce, Machiavellian that he is, says this is an opportunity.
Yes.
This is untapped real estate.
Or maybe, or even maybe if he didn't think about it back then, maybe 30, 40, 50 years later, he's like, by the way, now that I'm starting to kind of put this plan together to be a king, I think I should go talk to Baron Ironclad and say, hey, I've got a deal that we might be able to work out.
Right.
To where, and of course, a person who's trying to become a king, working with a warlord, that's not unheard of. To say, look, we'll start working together, and then when I become king, you have free reign to come on in and bring your force in. So,
I mean, do we even know that Zalen's been in the city the entire time to have known about
didn't we
this?
say his family lineage goes back really long in this
We
city?
did look up his. I did. That was something I did. I looked up his lineage.
Okay,
His family has been here at least for a few generations since pre-magic.
Yeah.
Or pre-magic
Couple hundred
outage.
years.
Right.
So he's been here long enough. Probably, I don't know how old he is. Probably at least not his dad's lifetime. His dad definitely was not born here.
Yeah.
But he might have been.
He appears to be elven middle-aged, right?
Yeah, and Baron Ironclad
Which is younger than Rhapsody?
Which is...
Because Rhapsody's like retirement age.
Yeah. So
She's like up closer to 3, but past 250.
Yeah.
And Baron Ironclad is a regular dwarf. He's not a Duergar. So if he was, maybe Edgar is like one of his
Wild to see these
lieutenants.
elves and dwarves working together to overthrow.
Absurd.
Overthrow these humans who came from across the sea onto Tanverel. Oh, I've said too much.
Well, and I think I made an offhand comment as a joke to Connor, and I was like, this is definitely giving colonialism.
Right. But someone, either Johnny or Kira, you guys, this is fantastic because you guys were talking about how many dwarves have we seen in the city? We haven't seen
Johnny.
many, right?
Right.
And then
Despite
you're right.
the fact that
When they show up.
Meta, I know that Dwarvish is one of the languages of commerce in the city. So I guess maybe not always spoken by dwarves, because I asked, when we were doing character creation, I asked Brooke, what is a language that I would know from like markets and haggling and all those things? And he said, Elvish and Dwarvish are going to be your go-tos. And so that's why I picked Dwarvish in character creation. So the language is alive in the city, even if we're not actually seeing that many dwarves.
Yeah. Right. And I think that mostly what we've seen is a lot of humans.
And a gnome.
And
a gnome librarian.
But mostly a lot of humans.
But a lot of humans.
And
like 90% people.
Yeah, Ironspire is a human city, mostly.
Yeah, and elves are certainly common, elves and half-elves, but not nearly as much as humans. And I think there is that feeling of colonialism. I think you've got that right, Gary, that there is...
I've become suspicious of Sable's parentage.
Two segues.
Because my elven parent was just not from here. My elven parent is from far away. So.
This is true.
Well, we figured out where your tiefling parent was from?
Yeah, also far away.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because he was the stable boy, or he was an employee.
Maybe we should talk about that.
Go ahead.
So that was mentioned way back in episode 2.
Yeah, I know. So talk about that.
Talk a little bit about Moxie.
Moxie's mom,
right?
Elven. Moxie's mom's husband.
There you go.
Elven. Moxie's mom's husband's neighbor. not elven.
Was he kind of a sexy red tiefling?
Something like that.
Yeah,
He was. That's where my demonic heritage comes from. My infernal heritage.
Did the rendezvous take place at Disneyland?
No.
Disney World.
Disney World.
So they were married. He was not like the highest ranking guy, but he was like the lord of the area, right? And then everything seems fine. His wife is pregnant. It's going to be great. I'm going to have a little boy. And then not only does he not have a little boy,
Oh, he
but
even
she's
wanted
pink.
a boy.
Of course he wanted a boy.
But she's pink.
But she's pink.
With
and
horns.
so,
Tail.
obviously, Moxie and her mom, Alesta, are kicked out on their high knees. And of course, I think we've mentioned it on camera. This is knowledge that Kiri has, but Moxie does not. But Alesta poisoned him on her way out of town.
Yes.
After
the lover or the father?
the father,
Yeah.
after the father killed the neighbor.
Oh, I didn't know that part myself.
Okay, wait a
even.
minute. So
It was mentioned if you go back
her
to episode
husband killed the lover.
2.
Amazing.
So he's dead.
Yeah.
I did not know
I'm
that.
orphaned.
You are definitely orphaned.
I have an adoptive mom. So
How
then
many of us are orphans here? Is
Alesta,
that 75% of us?
Alesta and Moxie wandered around trying to find a place to be. But she didn't have a lot of skills. Being just a noble,
Right.
not necessarily a noble woman, but a woman of any kind of rank. She doesn't have laundry skills and stuff like that. So we're wandering around. We get to Ironspire. She hears a rumor that women can find work in Ironspire. That's not sex work. And
Correct.
so she's like, this is great. And then they find their way to the Siren Song. Rhapsody gives her a job and a place to stay. When Moxie was little, Moxie's probably in human years, like 6 to 7 at that point in time. When they get into Ironspire, big enough to understand what's going on and to all of this stuff. But essentially, she was told, Moxie believes that her dad died. She doesn't know about her mom being married to a man that's not her dad.
Right.
Yeah.
Alesta didn't. She's like, that's unnecessary. So Moxie and Alesta actually lived in the rooms that Harmony is living in now, which is just like a bigger suite on the second floor, or on the third floor. And then Alesta and Rhapsody became really good friends. Rhapsody was really great at creative design, but didn't have a head for books. And Alesta's like, hey, I can do math.
There you go.
And so Alesta kind of became like the business manager, and they were best friends. And eventually, Alesta became ill and passed away. And then Moxie was like, I don't know what to do. I don't know where to go. At that point in time, she's probably a young adult. She's in her human years, like her early 20s. So in tiefling years, like her late 30s.
Yeah.
And so Rhapsody invites her to move into her apartment on the second floor and start taking things over. And then Rhapsody retired a couple years ago.
Yeah.
And Moxie's been running the
but these
Siren
aren't
Song.
tiefling years because you aren't actually a
Right. That's why we had to say
they're telfling years.
Telfling years.
because you're a half
Right,
telfling,
so
half
because-
tiefling, half elf. And that's why you have that longer lifespan.
Right. That's
Which you had to
why-
figure out how to do because that was the only way you would know
Because I wanted to know
Sable.
Sable before Sable was Sable, and so I was like, oh, but no, that's not gonna work. I'm not old enough. So we did a telfling. But yeah, so that's why she's in her 60s.
Yeah.
But still basically in human years, like in her 30s.
Just to talk about something that's been a big focus connection thing is slipping over, because I want to talk about Sable too, but slipping over to Dr. Stone. Dr. Stone knows this patch that's on these Dwarf and Dugar coats and things down here. He knows that patch of Baron Thaddeus Ironclad because
he's also an orphan. Surprise. There are...
As of right now, Johnny still has his parents.
Exactly. That's why I said 25% of us still have parents.
We must protect Manda at all costs.
They become a liability.
Yeah.
That's why we don't have parents.
Well, we'll get to that in a moment. So anyway, go ahead.
So when I was 10 years old, Thaddeus Ironclad, the Baron, came down from the mountains and just sacked Gearport, the little tiny town that was on
about
the
400
ocean.
miles to the south.
We were just a bunch of fisher people. We did nothing. And he decided to invade and destroy everybody. Very Game of Thronesy.
The dwarves needed breathing room.
Maybe, whatever. He just wanted to conquer a bunch of humans who we have decided are basically just, they have invaded this area the first. So, yeah. But then he went off from there and went with a group of refugees to Calimera and grew up there and went to doctoring school and graduated being a doctor and then went to work in being a rebel.
Yeah.
A medic in the rebellion.
So did you see your parents die?
Yes.
So do you think that Dr. Stone's, part of Dr. Stone's, probably not the whole thing, but part of Dr. Stone's motivation for becoming a doctor was to I couldn't save them.
There's that. It's also when I was heading to Calimera, there was a doctor who was helping the people in refugees and was fascinated by that and also found that he had the skills to do it. He not only had the skills to be able to heal people, but also to physically, what do you call it? Mundane healing.
Yeah.
But also maybe a little bit of spiritual healing. And so it's just something that he could do. And so it was drawn to the kindness that was shown to refugees.
I just inherited the family business, but
and whether you, Michael Cross, intended it or not, in that opening scene of young Dr. Stone, young Elias, we see that he does have a little bit of magical ability, and then you somehow, if that was on purpose, it's brilliant, weaved it in because now he has, of course, a feat that ties into that initiate.
His magic initiate is he was born able to do magic from the beginning. And since then, not only since he tied into the
church?
The kind of magic, divine magic.
Divine magic, yeah.
Now that he's tied into divine magic, it started to come back. So he has a little bit now. He can do Find Familiar. He can do other little spells that normally a cleric isn't able to do. And that's why I wanted this, was the little spells that become more arcane, and he has more ability with arcane than normal.
Yeah.
But his time with the rebellion was against also Thaddeus Ironclad.
Yes, in fact, probably drove him back.
Right. And I can't help it. It's a rebellion, so there's Star Wars is always a part of that. And, but his wife that he had known through the rebellion also got killed by this Thaddeus Ironclad. Not personally by him, but
Kimberly just needs to know that Michael's worst fear is just losing his wife.
Losing my wife is the biggest fear of my life.
You can't hold on to one of these games.
That's right. Gideon and now Dr. Stone.
There was when I was writing this. That is why Blackjack had all his family.
Had to be living 97 siblings.
Because basically it's sandwiched in between these horrible, tragic wives. Yes.
Yeah. So there's that connection that's here, and again, maybe these dwarves were called for. Maybe these dwarves found it. Maybe these dwarves have been underneath the city, or again, maybe they're infiltrators. And the Thaddeus Ironclad tends to be about 300 miles to the south, at the south end of the Mistspire Mountains, right? And we are, diagonal hypotenuse triangle off to the coast here with Ironspire. But there's connections and questions and connections and questions.
Yeah, and now the question that I have is, because I knew who Duergar were, but I don't think I'd ever seen a Duergar until we were down here, because I was fighting regular dwarves.
Yes.
I was not fighting, so... And it could just be that in this world, the Duergar and the dwarves, maybe like the regular elves, the drow, are partners. There's not a separation between them. They all work together.
Yeah.
Or maybe Thaddeus is trying to unite
the dwarven
dwarves.
clans. Yeah, the different species.
There we go. Which quick tangent in an episode when you guys first realized some Drugar, and Connor, with player knowledge, says, "Can't they get bigger and smaller?" Right? And I said, "No, I don't think you know that." But it came across as like, no, and I meant Sable didn't know it, but anyway. So then later, when it happens, Connor's like, "Wait a minute,
you told me they couldn't do that."
But if we're talking about Duergar working with dwarves, the question then is, are the drow working with elves? We know of a drow in this city. Well, we don't.
The drow are, that's true. And the drow,
we'd love to.
Johnny would love to know.
Johnny would love to know, if you know what I mean.
in the biblical sense. Right, but we don't. Do we know any drow?
No.
I don't think. I think she's the only one.
And she goes to great lengths to not be known by anybody.
And we don't. And the drow in this world are not nearly like they are in like the Forgotten
There's
Realms.
a pretty big possibility she is like one of the only drow in the city.
Yeah.
Unless Brooke has other ideas about that.
Yeah.
Or at least on the surface.
No, she seems to be unique. I don't want to say unique, but she, like you, like I don't think any of the characters have ever
and I don't
known.
think we can specifically say the elves and dwarves are working together just because Edrer and what's his name?
Zaylin.
Zaylin are working together. So it could just be the dwarves and Zaylin is helping them out to do this thing. So it might not be elves and dwarves working together so much as dwarves working with Zaylin Pierce.
Like Scar and the hyenas.
Yeah. Because I don't think we've seen any other elves,
I think
have we?
that means that Zaylin Pierce is going to be eaten by Durgars? In that situation?
Hold on, I like this now.
Can
Let me
we
see what I
get
can do.
Jeremy Irons
Can we
to
get
play
Jeremy Irons
Zaylin
to play
Pierce?
Zaylin
That'd be
Pierce?
great.
No,
Let me
fools, I'm gonna
call
kill
some
him.
people who won't know anything. So
Of the other elves we know, I think it's just Rhapsody.
Yeah.
Do we not know any other elves?
Other than
there are
Zaylin.
definitely some in the
we
city.
know of them.
Yeah.
Like, obviously, Zaylin Pierce's family, they would be elves, but we've never met them.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there are elves, if I can speak. There are elves and half elves in the city walking around and things like
Right,
that.
but for the
Like,
most
they
part,
are
most
not.
people we've known as humans.
Yeah, but you guys kind of know humans. The city.
And machines.
Which
We've
again,
met
short-lived
more
and
robots.
short memories, it's real easy to fool them.
We've met more robots than elves. Lots of robots.
The robots are the colonizers.
Yeah, we've got. I think all of the city guard that we've seen have been human, including August, right?
I think
his friend Logan and his friend. Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry for going blank. The member who's still in the guard,
Earl.
Earl. Yep, thank you very much, and Earl.
Because I was thinking of Earl's ribs.
I feel like all the kids were humans.
All the
Yeah.
My head
Yeah, they
canon,
are,
all
yeah.
the kids were
Yeah,
humans.
yeah. I think all the kids were humans.
I think you'd be able to tell Sable is a half elf.
Yes,
Yes.
for sure. Well,
But
I think so. Yes.
yeah, because I like
But we
to
also
picture
know
that
that
their
you're an
features
enigma.
are a mystery wrapped in enigma, or a
you go.
enigma wrapped in mystery.
And speaking a little bit of this,
We haven't even gotten into Johnny.
I'm just sitting there quietly. Go ahead.
He's like, I'm keeping my head down. Maybe the DM won't
Yeah,
notice
it's already
me.
been almost an hour.
Oh no, time's up.
And we'll see you next week.
And here's Sable's backstory. Oh, we don't have time. That's how this whole entire show has been.
That'd be digital rioting, I think, right?
But
So-
I mean, nothing that I or Michael said is stuff that hasn't come up before.
right. It's good to have this little consolidation and refresh everybody's memory and
Right.
things,
John,
so.
Johnny has revealed a lot. Sable's revealed nothing. So
Right.
Yeah.
I think you should go first, Johnny.
So Johnny has his parents.
Your
We
mom
were
Doc,
raised
who-
normal.
Yes.
who we will protect at all costs.
Yes.
We will die for.
Raised normal, wanted to leave the small farm life, but not go too far away.
Yeah.
So here he is, and joined the guard to be the best he could, and hopefully retire early. And next thing you know,
He retired early.
He just didn't have any friends. An
He's,
offer of friendship was given to you. All you had to do.
well, he was focused and yeah. So with that, he was offered a chance to use his skills and dedication to service in a bad way, and upon refusal, was gotten rid of. but not in a way of, well, I'm just going to kill you and leave your and hide your body. It was well, I'm just going to tarnish your name and kick you out the street.
Yeah.
Sorry
kind of
about
thing.
that.
So that because the thing that August has come up with is, if I disappear, it's going to look mysterious. But if I'm running around the streets like a lunatic saying the guard is corrupt and is trying to take over, no one's going to believe me. Of course I'm mad at the company that just fired me and I'm going to say things. Why did I do so well for so long? And all of a sudden now I don't like them,
Yeah.
So that's that, yeah. And that's all he wanted. He wanted a simple life.
But Mom and Dad don't know that you were fired.
Mom and Dad don't know it because I can't bring myself to break their hearts because they believed in me so much.
Instead, he has been able to pick up some mercenary jobs, like doing guard caravan things. That's episode 1. That's where we open up, right?
Yeah.
He bounces for me sometimes.
There you go, bounces for the siren song, a little bit there.
Not for the siren song.
The best way to make money,
just
adventure. Best way to make money, adventure.
Yeah, and indeed, some people had qualms about taking some money, and August did not.
Neither did Dr. Stone.
We can leave this on the floor for someone bad to take, or I can take it to
there you go.
Never use it.
And wrote a nice little letter about the bonus that he got in his new position, right? Lying to your parents, young man. Oh my goodness.
They'll understand.
It's to protect them.
Yes.
And made the fatal flaw of revealing to the DM the city in which, the place in which they're going, Crescent City.
Well, Brooke, I did that because of the trust that it's not DM versus player.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah. Also, be nice to Rhapsody.
Wait, what?
Well,
Hold
it's
on,
okay because it's DM versus NPCs. So.
That's my dice versus the NPCs.
But
That's the
I think,
problem there.
Well, and then something that I didn't kind of mention is that so I think I've made the joke on a different roundtable. Rhapsody's backstory is longer than Moxie's, but Rhapsody and the Siren Song have done a lot of work alongside the Sapphire Society, not necessarily for the Sapphire Society, but we've been known to get notes to say, hey, this woman might find herself widowed in the next couple days. Maybe she needs somewhere to stay. And so Rhapsody has done a lot of forgery work, and she did the forgery work for the official letter that got August fired.
There
Rhapsody
you go.
did.
You did what?
Moxie did not. She did remember the interaction because she is the business head of the relationship, and so I knew what we got paid for it. But it didn't until she showed up at our bar and threatened me, if you'll remember a handful of episodes back.
Yes.
That was when I realized,
Specialist Laura.
we may have been the reason he got fired, or a contributing factor at best.
There you go. And you've kept that secret tight to the
think
chest.
No, you told him. No, you told him.
Did I tell him?
Yeah.
I confessed.
While we were walking to the.
He
I think it was the
forgave me,
cathedral,
I'm
yeah.
sure.
Down on the inside.
We didn't know, and it also wasn't me. It was Rhapsody.
It was Rhapsody. And we were just taking vibes. We didn't know that this was going to be a thing. How obviously fantasy world, and we're making up the stories, and we wanted to have an adventure with all the players in, but how interesting it would have been if August would have taken that opportunity for corruption. You would have been on the Shiv side. You would have been like right there.
Oh, I would have all the answers.
Yeah, you would. Yeah, So you would have been one of the antagonists instead of Reynard. Yeah, you would have been possibly could have been one of the antagonists for the
climb the ranks there.
Yeah, exactly. Instead of climbing the ranks here.
Speaking of people who are attempting to climb the ranks in a pyramid scheme.
Woohoo!
We have 2 minutes.
Give us your elevator speech.
I have a feeling this one might go just not super long, but this one might go just a little long. We might get bonus tracks, bonus time on this particular roundtable because, Connor, you've got things written on paper about Sable, but I don't know that a lot of it has come out in gameplay yet, just because Sable holds so much to the chest. Like, if you like, how did he get found on the street? What was a little bit of the story before that and things?
So the thing is, would you look at the time? Thank you very much for joining us for the
Connor,
round table.
I got your back. Here's some bonding. What are we going to do for lunch, guys?
And I got to go to the bathroom. So let's go ahead and close this thing down. Okay, so we are about to go into battle. We are underground. We're about to go into battle, and hopefully it goes well.
Yeah. Sable has gone up ahead a little bit into this. You guys have entered this, what appears to be a cathedral, this dilapidated, broken down cathedral. Every now and then, weird purple flashes of light. And Sable is just about to step around the corner into the main.
I'm calling it now. Brooke is going to kill me off, so you don't have to know my backstory.
All right.
Woo! Well, go ahead and thank everybody for being here, Sable.
Thank you for having me. My name was Connor. I played Sable for 2 seconds.
I'm Carrie Hester.
Johnny Payne.
Michael Cross.
And I'm Brooke Bullock. We'll see you next time on Curse of the Clockwork City.
Woo.
Keep up to date with the coolest geek shenanigans in Oklahoma when you listen to the Okie Geek podcast. Stay in the know about upcoming conventions, comic books, and the nerdiest happenings in the Panhandle State. That way you don't miss out on things like live Mario Kart, Wizard comics, or board game conventions. Search for Okie Geek on the NPR app or wherever you get podcasts.